The earliest event in the Chucky timeline is September 1866, when the Hackensack mayor's house is built. And then we don't know anything after that for another 93 years, until the birth of Charles Lee Ray on March 12, 1959. We don't see Chucky's date of birth anywhere, so how do I know that it occurs in 1959? To begin, this newspaper article states that his parents were killed on his 7th birthday. This is confusing because another article states Ray parents slain, 8-year-old Charles orphaned. That means that one of these articles has to be wrong. If we count the candles on his cake, there are 7 of them. And on the radio, we hear the killer is loose that same day. Let's make an excuse for the filmmakers and just say that this article came out a year after the killing took place. The Ray parents were slain. The now 8-year-old Charles was orphaned. If we saw more of this text, it would be something along the lines of, police were called last night to 987 Sherwood Lane only to discover what must have been a shocking display of murder in the mid-century modern home. That's what papers said 1 year ago. It's not unheard of for journalists to do a follow-up story on the anniversary of an event, so let's just go with that. This headline from March 12, 1965 mentions a gruesome double homicide. This is most likely Charles' parents, so let's just tentatively put 1965 down as the year that Charles turns from 6 years old to 7. The other date we can fill in is in 1972, as shown by the title text here, when Charles was 14 years old, as shown by the credits of that episode. It doesn't say if the scene takes place before or after his birthday that year, but it must be after, so Charles started the year as a 13-year-old. We know he didn't start the year as a 14-year-old and turn 15 that year, because in order for that to be possible, his 7th birthday would have been in 1964. In this shot in episode 1, it clearly shows Charles and his mom both alive in 1965. That means his parents must have been killed on his 7th birthday sometime after that in 1965. So we can fill out that he was 13 to begin the year in 1972, and the rest of the calendar fills out evenly, which leaves us with March 12, 1959 is the year that Charles was born. If you want to know the date of everything else in the franchise, stick around to the end of this video. It appears to be that same year, 1972, when Charles leaves the wayward boy's home. The next known event is the birth of Andy Barclay on November 9th, 1982. How do I know this? In Child's Play 1, we see Charles get killed in the early hours of the morning, transfer his soul into Chucky, and Chucky is given to Andy on his 6th birthday. So Charles' death day is the same day as Andy's birthday. In Bride of Chucky and in Season 1, Episode 3, we see that Charles died on November 9th, 1988. Subtract the 6 years of Andy's life before meeting Chucky, and you have Andy's date of birth, November 9th, 1982. And yes, I'm aware of this file in Child's Play 2 that lists Andy's birthday as January 4, 1983, but remember, this was just the toy company's file on him. It was the 80s, they didn't have the internet, and probably just had bad info. We can throw that out. Then there's the beginning of Charles' crime career in 1984, according to a newspaper seen in Curse. This is assuming nobody ever found out that he killed his mom or the janitor at the orphanage. This is probably the same year that he met Tiffany, because we see them commit crimes together right away. Chucky and Tiffany get their Pontiac in 1987 and move to Chicago shortly after in 1988. So then we have November 9th, 1988, the day that Charles dies and transfers his soul into the doll, which is also the day Nika is born, because we see Charles go from his apartment with Tiffany to the room that he's keeping the pregnant Sarah captive in to the toy store where he's shot. And yes, I'm aware of this paper in Curse that claims that Charles was killed the day before December 27th, 1988. We know that the tombstones and the other newspapers are correct, however, and this article is not, because there are no Christmas decorations seen anywhere in the original Child's Play. It was just a typo, okay? A severe and continuous typo. And yes, I'm aware of this chart in Cult that claims that Nika was born in 87 rather than 88. This also has to be a typo, because we literally see Nika being born and it leads right into Child's Play. So Child's Play starts on November 9th, 1988 and takes place over a few days. Eddie Caputo blows up on the 10th, Norris shoots Chucky on the 11th. On December 29, 1988, Andy gives an interview in a tabloid newspaper. Then there's Child's Play 2. All we know is that it takes place in October of 1990, based on the fact that Andy is slightly older, and this calendar, where the first of the month is on a Monday. The only year in that vicinity where October starts on a Monday is in 1990. On to Child's Play 3, Chucky finds Andy's file in a computer and states his present age is 16 years old. If Andy turned 6 in November 1988, then his 16th birthday is November 1998. In Child's Play 3, we see snow on the ground, but it looks like it's melting, as if it's early spring in 1999. In Bride of Chucky, Tiffany reunites with Chucky and says,
"I know it took me 10 years to find you."
This would not be long after the 10-year mark from Chucky's death, meaning that Bride of Chucky probably takes place in spring 1999 as well. This checks out because she would have found out that Chucky was back shortly after he was shredded in the fan in Child's Play 3. She went straight to retrieve the pieces. There's also a sticker on Jesse's car in Bride that says 1298. Those stickers are usually valid for 6 months, so yeah, it's more evidence that we're still in the first half of 1999. There's another time skip before Seed of Chucky. The movie set scene takes place on March 18th, 2004, as seen on the date of that day's issue of Variety, and the film takes place over a few days until the 21st. Then there's an epilogue scene 5 years later, which is Glenn and Glenda's birthday party. They were born on the final night of the main story of Seed, the 21st, so this is now March 21st, 2009. We don't actually see the date of Curse of Chucky until the opening credits of the movie after that, it's Cult of Chucky, where we found out that the little girl who survived, Alice, was found on January 8th, 2013. It doesn't look all that cold in Curse, but maybe it was a warm winter. Nika was ruled insane in her trial a few months later on April 7th, 2013. At some point after that, Chucky finds out how to split his soul up into multiple dolls and sends one of them to attack Andy, which Andy captures and tries to use as proof that Nika is not crazy on November 1st, 2013. He's not successful, but he publishes the video online that same day.
Wait a minute, there's 2 of them?
Yes, there are multiple Chuckies already. So another one of them is sent to attack Andy at his apartment. This is the epilogue of Curse, stated to be 6 months after Nika's trial. That puts it in late October or early November. Actually, we know it's early November because of this line.
Yeah, I'm definitely coming for my birthday tomorrow.
Which means the date is November 8th, 2013, the day before Andy's 25th birthday. The next action would go down almost 4 years after this. Nearly 4 years go by before the main events of Cult of Chucky.
In the past 4 years, you've had to accept some hard truths about yourself.
Chucky starts taking victims at the asylum on January 24th, 2017, because we see the date listed in this Perez Hilton article. Some of the top related stories during articles in Cult are about Obamacare and the Trump wall, so January 2017 seems accurate, since this was not long before Obama's term as US president ended and Trump's term began. Finally, that brings us to Chucky Season 1. Some people have suggested that this takes place right after Cult of Chucky in 2017, however, it actually takes place in 2021. And I have plenty of proof. My only note is that, like many TV shows made in the 20s, this seems to take place in a world where COVID-19 never happened. Please take me there. Chucky first reemerges in Hackensack in mid-March, which we can see is where the murder rate spikes on this graph. This has got to be March 2021, because Devin says,
in the past year alone, our murder rate has spiked 25%.
But the series doesn't start until October 18th, a date we can derive from the fact that Lucas Wheeler's headstone lists his death as October 19th, 2021, and we first meet him one day before that. It's stated that Jake misses a week of school after this. In episode 2, a title card says Hackensack present day. The episode takes place on Halloween, and indeed it did come out the week of Halloween in 2021. That means episode 3, which would be the day after, is set on November 1st. The song that they listened to at Lexi's silent disco party came out in 2020, so it can't still be 2017. The song wasn't out yet. Episode 4 looks like it's the next morning, November 2nd. In this one, Chucky refers to Lexi as a Karen on training wheels. Even though COVID didn't happen in this universe, I'm still going to assume that Karens made themselves known in 2020. The confusion comes about in episode 5. Nika, after being possessed by the soul of Charles Lee Ray, regains control of her body and asks this guy for the date. He tells her it's November 8th, and she says, "It's been 2 weeks." This led some people to believe that Chucky Season 1 takes place in 2017, 2 weeks after Cult of Chucky. However, that doesn't make sense. November does not take place 2 weeks after January. What most likely happened is that Nika is basically asleep whenever Chucky is in control of her body. She might have temporarily gotten control back in October 2017 or October 2018, 19, 20, it doesn't really matter. And then Chucky was in control for 1 or more years after that. When Nika regained control on November 8th, 2021, she assumed that only 2 weeks had passed when it had actually been years. If you need any more proof that it's 2021, look at this conversation that Jake and Devin have about horror movies.
Favorite final girl?
Laurie Strode, hands down.
Jamie Lee's gonna win the Saturn this year.
Dude, she's gonna win an Oscar. She's magnificent.
They must be talking about Halloween Kills from 2021, because Jamie Lee Curtis was not in any movies in 2017. The rest of the season just takes place in mid-November. We don't know the exact date, but in episode 6 there's an intro scene, which is the first time we see Andy Barclay in the show. It appears to happen right after episode 5, which would mean that Andy is reintroduced on his birthday again, which is kind of fun. The last thing to figure out is how long Andy was in captivity after Cult.
I googled Andy Barclay and got an article from 2 weeks ago. Violent patient escapes Harrogate Psychiatric Hospital. Manhunt underway.
That would mean that Andy didn't escape until October 25th, 2021. So he was actually in Harrogate for almost 5 years. However, in the same episode, Jake says this.
I got a call from Rhode Island about a month ago. It must be Andy Barclay.
We saw that phone call in episode 1, meaning that it happened on October 19th, 6 days before Andy supposedly escaped. Andy is a pretty crafty guy, and the hospital was left very short-staffed after the events of Colt. I think what happened here is that Andy escaped a while ago. They just didn't realize he escaped until much later. He might have escaped the previous winter because the epilogue of Colt shows Kyle, in the winter, putting away the Chucky head at Andy's request. We can assume it took some time for Andy and Kyle to meet up again after that. I don't know how Andy pulled off this whole escape without them realizing, but he probably tricked one of the new incoming patients into pretending to be him and took advantage of a new staff member that didn't know names and faces yet. So I just wanted to make this video to clarify my current views on the Chucky timeline before I start making any more Chucky horror history episodes, so I can focus more on the character analysis when I do make those. I am getting eye surgery soon, that's why I'm wearing glasses lately. I'm gonna try not to miss a week, but if I do, that's probably why. If this ends up being my last video ever, then I guess I got Final Destination 5. But for the event that doesn't happen, please subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week, ring the death bell and set it to all notifications, and I'll see you in the next one, assuming we both survive.